James Carter had finally made it. After years of saving, budgeting, and scraping by in tiny apartments with paper-thin walls, he was standing in the driveway of his first real home. A two-story beauty in the heart of Cedar Hills. Gated, landscaped, HOA managed, and supposedly one of the safest neighborhoods in the state. The kind of place with trimmed hedges, identical mailboxes, and a community newsletter called the Cedar Sentinel. It was perfect, almost too perfect. As the moving truck pulled in behind him, James took a deep breath of the crisp, manicured air. The late afternoon sun bathed the street in gold. Children rode bikes in a quiet circle. A sprinkler hissed in perfect rhythm. It felt like stepping into a postcard. "Hey there," came a soft voice behind him. James turned to see an older man walking a gray, trembling dachshund. His sun hat sat low on his brow, but his eyes studied James closely. "New here?" the man asked, eyeing the U-Haul. "Yeah, just closed last week," James said with a smile. "Feels like a dream." The man smiled back, then leaned in, lowering his voice. "Word of advice," he said. "Watch where you park. Karen doesn't miss anything." James raised an eyebrow. "Karen? You'll know her when you see her. Clipboard, white SUV, walks like she owns the pavement." The man looked around nervously, then added in a hushed tone, "She is the HOA, unofficially." Before James could ask more, the dachshund tugged forward, and the man gave a polite nod before continuing down the sidewalk. James chuckled to himself. There's always one neighbor, he figured. Every neighborhood has a Karen. He didn't expect her to appear so fast. Barely 10 minutes later, a white Lexus SUV glided up the street like a shark in shallow water. It slowed, then stopped. The window rolled down halfway. "Are you the new owner of 43 Pineview?" a woman asked, voice crisp as ice. James turned toward her. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, clipboard propped against the passenger seat. "Yeah, that's me. Just moving in." "Your moving truck is on the edge of the grass. That's a violation of Section 3B. No tires on community-maintained property." She gestured to the barely touched curb strip. James blinked. "It's temporary. We're unloading." She interrupted. "I'll overlook it this once, but please familiarize yourself with the HOA handbook. We take things seriously here." With that, she rolled up the window and drove off, her brake lights blinking twice like a warning. James stood there for a second, stunned, then muttered under his breath, "Well, that must be Karen." As the sun dipped below the rooftops and shadows stretched across the pristine lawns, something about the neighborhood shifted in his mind. The perfection, the quiet, suddenly felt less peaceful and more watchful. He had moved into paradise, but paradise, he was beginning to realize, had a set of rules, and Karen was ready to enforce every single one. James had only been in Cedar Hills for a week when it happened. It was a crisp Tuesday evening, the kind where the sky melted from orange to plum, and everything looked just a little too perfect. James had just gotten home from work and parked his car in front of his house, slightly angled, with the back bumper just kissing the curved part of the sidewalk. Still legal, still safe, or so he thought. He was barely inside long enough to microwave leftovers when he heard the unmistakable click of a camera shutter. He peered through the blinds. There she was, Karen, standing across the street, phone in hand, zoomed in on his car like she was documenting a crime scene. She tapped furiously on her screen, turned on her heel, and strutted away, heels echoing like gunshots down the driveway. James stepped outside. Hey, something wrong. Karen didn't even turn around. The next morning, he found it, bright orange, flapping beneath his windshield wiper like a parking ticket. A violation notice, printed and sealed with the HOA's crest. Improper parking. Vehicle position beyond approved curb boundary. Violation of Section 4C1. Warning issued. James blinked. He looked around. Every other car on the street was parked just like his. Some worse. Was this a joke? He stormed back inside and pulled up the HOA rules online. It took 20 minutes of digging through jargon to find Section 4C1, and when he did, it was a single sentence. Vehicles must remain fully within the perimeter of designated curb zones to ensure pedestrian safety and property visibility. Vague. Intentional. He called the HOA office. "Is this serious?" he asked. "Because my car wasn't blocking anyone." The woman on the other end sounded tired. "If the complaint came from a board member, we have to log it. It's a warning, not a fine." Yet, James exhaled. And what if the board member is overly enthusiastic? A long pause. "Then, Mr. Carter, I'd recommend keeping a low profile for your first few months. It'll make things easier." He didn't like the sound of that. Later that evening, James took a walk around the neighborhood. His car was parked perfectly this time, tires tucked in like a showroom display. Yet as he passed Karen's house, he noticed her blind shift. She was watching. A few houses down, he spotted another orange notice, faded, taped to a neighbor's trash bin. The name on it had been crossed out in pen, but James could make out the same signature at the bottom. K. Woodacre, HOA Board. He felt something between annoyance and unease tighten in his chest. This wasn't just about parking. This was about control. And Karen, it seemed, was always looking for her next infraction. James tried to stay neutral. He didn't move into Cedar Hills to make enemies, especially not over parking. But within days of that warning notice, he realized neutrality wasn't an option when Karen had already decided he was a problem. It started small. A folded paper note, tucked under his wiper blade like a passive-aggressive fortune cookie. "Please be aware of your vehicle alignment. We all must do our part to keep Cedar Hills beautiful." James sighed, crumpled it, and moved on. No need to escalate. But then came the second note. Second reminder. This is not the city. This is a community. Don't be the reason things change. That one stung a little more. Who even talks like that? A few nights later, he caught her again. Karen, across the street with her phone, taking pictures of his driveway while pretending to walk her dog. Only this time, her phone's flash went off. Busted. He stepped outside. "Everything okay?" She froze, turned sharply, and gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just capturing some lighting inspiration. My niece is an artist." James looked at her empty leash. No dog. Right. Makes sense. The next morning, a formal HOA mail pinged into his inbox. "Dear Mr. Carter, we have received multiple reports of improper trash bin storage and potential noise disturbances after 9:00 p.m. Please be advised this behavior contradicts Section 5A3 of the HOA standards." What? He stared at the screen. He hadn't even taken his trash out yet this week. And noise. He barely spoke above a whisper at home. This wasn't a warning. It was harassment in legal costume. He replied calmly, asked for specifics, and got silence in return. That same day, while backing into his driveway, James noticed something strange. A fresh, shallow key scratch carved along the driver's side of his car. Not deep enough to trigger an alarm, just enough to hurt. A jagged reminder. He reported it to the HOA. They said they'd look into it. When he asked about security cameras, they told him, "Unfortunately, the HOA doesn't have jurisdiction over individual driveways." Translation: You're on your own. He tried to shake it off. He wanted to shake it off. But that night, he noticed something that made his stomach twist. His trash can, neatly placed at the curb, had been pulled halfway into the street, tipped on its side like a warning. On top of it, another note. Third reminder. Some of us are watching. Some of us care. James stood there under the streetlight, holding the note with chilled fingers. He glanced toward Karen's house. Her lights were off, her blinds shut. But somehow, he knew she was awake, watching. waiting. For 3 days, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No notes. No violations. No blurry photos of his car posted in the HOA newsletter. James almost convinced himself Karen had moved on. That maybe she'd found another victim to stalk with her passive-aggressive rulebook. He should have known better. It was Saturday morning. The sky was overcast, the neighborhood still half asleep. James had just returned from the farmer's market, a bag of groceries slung under one arm. He parked on the street in front of his house, same spot as always, this time perfectly within the lines, tires just kissing the curb. He killed the engine, stepped out, and was halfway to his front door when it happened. The scream. High-pitched, guttural, sudden. It cut through the stillness like a knife, followed by a dramatic thud. James froze, keys in hand, and spun around. There, on the sidewalk behind his car, lay Karen, crumpled on the ground in a perfectly theatrical heap. Her phone lay just out of reach. One high heel had fallen off. She clutched her lower back like a Victorian heroine mid-faint. "Oh my God," she shrieked, tears already streaming. "He hit me. He backed into me and just walked away." Neighbors started pouring out of their homes, phones raised, murmurs rising. A dog barked in the distance. Someone called 911. James stood in shock. "What are you talking about?" "I parked. I didn't even reverse. You didn't see me." Karen sobbed. "I was right there, and you just ran me over." "Lady," he said, still stunned, "my car hasn't moved in 10 minutes. You're lying." The crowd was already whispering. "Did you see it happen? She's always complaining about someone. Maybe she slipped. Wait, isn't that the guy with the trash bin warning?" The sirens came fast. An ambulance, followed by a patrol car. Paramedics gently lifted Karen onto a stretcher as she moaned dramatically. "Back. It's my lower back. I can't feel my legs," she whimpered, glancing at the officers as if on cue. "He didn't even check if I was okay. Just left me there." James stepped forward, trying to explain, but one of the officers raised a hand. "Sir, please stay back while we assess the scene." "Assess what?" There wasn't even a dent on his bumper. Karen shot him a look from the stretcher, eyes glistening, but her lips curled into the faintest smirk. A performance. James clenched his fists. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a setup. And the scariest part, it was working. As the ambulance pulled away and a police officer started asking questions, James realized one thing with painful clarity. Karen hadn't snapped. She'd been planning this. The neighborhood was buzzing. By Sunday morning, whispers were everywhere. Lawn chairs turned toward James's house. Eyes followed him like he was some kind of criminal. A post had already gone up in the Cedar Hills community app, written by Quitaker_HOA board herself. "We regret to inform residents of a serious incident involving a pedestrian and a vehicle yesterday morning. We ask everyone to remain cautious, respectful, and mindful of the HOA's safety standards moving forward. A report is being filed. Thank you for your cooperation." No names, no facts, just enough to stir the pot. James felt the paranoia creeping in. He hadn't slept. The image of Karen collapsing on the pavement like a soap opera star haunted him. Her scream, her flawless timing, her sobs. It was rehearsed, had to be. And now she was doubling down. At noon, 2 officers returned to his door. "Mr. Carter," the taller one said, "Ms. Whittaker has filed a formal complaint alleging vehicular assault and negligence. We're required to follow up. Can we speak with you?" James invited them in, heart pounding. "I never hit her," he insisted. "My car was parked. I got out with groceries. I didn't even move the vehicle. Do you have any footage? Dash cam? Ring camera?" James cursed himself silently. He'd meant to install one but hadn't gotten around to it. "No, but she faked it. She's been harassing me for weeks. Fake violations, surveillance, threats. The officers exchanged a look. Can anyone corroborate your story? James shook his head. Neighbors had watched, but no one spoke up. And Karen, she was milking her moment. The officers left without arresting him. But the tension lingered. He knew how this looked on paper. No proof, just his word against the HOA queen bee. Later that day, his inbox pinged again. Subject: HOA violation escalation. Due to the pending police investigation regarding a reported injury on HOA property, you are temporarily prohibited from parking on the street until the matter is resolved. Please use your driveway exclusively. James stared at the message, hands trembling. Karen wasn't just trying to find him now. She was trying to ruin him. He stepped outside, scanning the street. Her blinds twitched. She was watching, again. Probably smiling from her couch, leg propped up, phone in hand. The perfect victim. But James noticed something odd. Her car hadn't moved since the incident. No visitors, no deliveries. Yet somehow, the morning paper was on her porch. The trash bins had been rolled out. She was moving just fine. And something inside him clicked. If she was lying about the injury, maybe she was dumb enough to get caught. James wasn't sleeping anymore. He lay awake every night, staring at the ceiling, playing the moment over and over. The scream, the fall, the performance, the humiliation. Karen's plan was working. His reputation, wrecked. And now, if the investigation escalated, his record might be next. But James wasn't done. Not yet. He needed proof. Something to expose Karen's lie and end this HOA nightmare once and for all. That's when he remembered. The old man with the dachshund. Mr. Wendell. Quiet. Keeps to himself. Walks every morning, same time, right when the accident happened. James caught him the next morning, just as Wendell was stepping out of his gate with his trembling pup. Mr. Wendell, James called, trying not to sound desperate. Can I ask you something? The man tilted his head. I heard about what happened, he said before James could continue. Karen's got the whole neighborhood thinking you're some kind of hitman. James laughed bitterly. I didn't touch her, but I think she staged the whole thing. And if you were walking that morning, maybe you saw something. Wendell glanced around, then leaned in close. Come inside. They sat in his cozy living room, blinds drawn, dachshund curled on the couch. I didn't want to get involved, Wendell said. Karen, she's dangerous in her own way. But yeah, I saw it. You were parked already. She looked around, waited, then screamed and just dropped, like she practiced it. James's pulse quickened. You're sure? Positive. I've lived here 20 years. I've seen her do everything to stay in control. But this was a new low. James sat forward. Did you record it? Wendell gave a sly smile. Not on purpose, but I've got a motion-activated dash cam in my window. Captures my front walk and the street, just in case someone ever messes with my mailbox again. James could have kissed the man. Wendell shuffled into the next room and returned with a USB drive. It's all there. Time-stamped. She throws herself backward like she's in a bad stage play. James gripped the drive like it was solid gold. You just saved me. But Wendell raised a hand. Don't say my name. Don't drag me into it. If Karen finds out I helped you. James nodded. You're off the record. That night, he watched the footage. Over and over. Karen glancing around, seeing no one watching. And then, with the precision of a seasoned actress, dropping like a sack of bricks behind his car. No impact. No touch. Just a lie. And now, he had proof. James smiled for the first time in days. Karen had declared war. But she'd forgotten one thing. Even in a neighborhood ruled by fear, truth still has a way of breaking through the blinds. James didn't rush. He waited. Let the tension simmer. Let Karen think she'd won. Let her strut around with that fogged limp and neck brace she didn't need, soaking up sympathy like a sponge. Let the neighborhood whisper and glance at him with side eyes, unsure if they were living next to a monster or a victim of the HOA's favorite drama queen. But James had the ace, and he planned to play it at the next HOA community meeting. It was held in the recreation hall every third Thursday, a place where plastic chairs and powdered lemonade served as the stage for Cedar Hill's favorite pastime, neighborhood politics. Karen always sat front and center, clipboard in hand, as if she were chairing the United Nations. James arrived early. He wore a calm smile, USB drive in his pocket. No grand entrance, no speech. Just quiet, calculated patience. The room filled quickly. Tension buzzed beneath the polite smiles and murmured greetings. Everyone knew. Everyone had picked a side, even if they didn't admit it. Karen entered last. She limped dramatically to her seat, braces in full view. A few residents clapped gently. Someone even offered her a pillow. Her smug glance at James across the room nearly made his blood boil. When the meeting began, it was routine at first. Budget proposals, landscaping complaints, mailbox vandalism. Then Karen stood up. Before we continue, I'd like to make an official statement regarding my assault. Whispers. She cleared her throat. I was struck by a vehicle belonging to Mr. James Carter, who then attempted to minimize the incident. I'm still in recovery. I hope this serves as a reminder that we must hold each other accountable to keep Cedar Hills safe. James raised his hand. Karen's eyes flicked toward him, uncertain now. Yes, Mr. Carter, the board president asked. I'd like to respond, James said calmly, and show a short video, less than a minute. Karen's face paled. You can't just. It directly concerns the event in question. James interrupted smoothly. It'll clarify things. He walked up, plugged the USB into the hall's projector laptop. The room fell silent. And then, they watched. The video played in full, Karen glancing around, pretending to tie her shoe, stepping backward, deliberately, into the path of a motionless car. No contact. Just her throwing herself to the ground like a soap opera diva auditioning for a lead role. Gasps echoed. Someone laughed. Others didn't hide their shock. Karen stood. Outrage. That video is. This is harassment. He edited that. That's not real. Footage is time-stamped and comes from a neutral third party, James said coolly. And I've already submitted it to the police. Karen's mask cracked. She stammered, furious, red-faced. But it was over. People started murmuring, not about James anymore, but about her. The Queen of Cedar Hills had fallen off her throne. And now, there would be consequences. The silence in the room was deafening. The once self-assured Karen stood frozen in disbelief, her face pale as the last shred of her carefully constructed narrative crumbled to dust before the eyes of the entire neighborhood. James felt a strange sense of satisfaction watching the reaction. The whispers began, quiet, tentative at first, then growing louder. Is it real? Did she fake it? She was always so over the top. Someone whispered, she deserves to be kicked out of the HOA. Karen's eyes darted from face to face, her breath shallow. She glanced at the board president for support, but he looked away, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. The game had changed. Mr. Carter, the president finally said, voice tight. This is highly unusual. But if this video is authentic, and it certainly seems to be, we'll need to review this matter. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but it was clear. Her credibility had evaporated. The residents were no longer looking at James with suspicion. They were looking at her with contempt. But James wasn't done yet. There's one more thing, he said calmly, tapping the table for attention. I've taken the liberty of forwarding this footage to the police. It seems there's more to Karen's injury than just a bad acting job. The room went still. Karen's face blanched. You wouldn't, you can't. Oh, but I can. James said, his voice steady. And I did. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Karen's world was collapsing in front of her. A few days later, the truth began to surface. Karen's injury was never real. It was a made-up tale, one she'd spun to manipulate the HOA and turn the neighborhood against James. But the real twist, the reason she'd gone this far, it was more than just power. It was about money. Karen had been using her position in the HOA to bully neighbors into selling their homes for below market value. She had a private investor lined up, ready to swoop in and purchase properties under the guise of neighborhood improvements. The HOA was the perfect cover for her scheme, a way to control, manipulate, and pocket the difference when the homes were sold. When the police dug deeper, they found evidence of Karen's illegal activities, forging signatures, falsifying HOA votes, and even bribing some of the board members to look the other way. In the end, it wasn't just about a fake injury or petty HOA violations. Karen Whitaker was arrested on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. And as for Cedar Hills, the HOA was dissolved. The residents voted to set up a new, fairer governing system, one that was truly for the community, not for someone's personal gain. James stood in his front yard that afternoon, watching as the last of the police cars drove away, the tension in the air finally lifting. He smiled to himself. It wasn't just the victory over Karen that felt sweet. It was knowing that the neighborhood was finally free from the control of someone who had held them hostage for so long. He'd fought for his home. And in the end, he'd won.